Hi, so we've gone ahead and we have the top of our box, and you should have the inside done and at least the bottom. So today what I'm going to show you is how to do the outside, and what you need to remember is we're not going to decorate our floxing. We're just going to decorate the outside bottom and the top. So I'm going to measure this, and this is just about 1 1/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it down to about a little over an inch, and I'll show you how I do that. And I've chosen this paper for my stack. You go ahead and choose whatever you like. You don't have to have the same papers that I do. I'm just showing you the technique right now. So first of all, I'm going to take off this little white area at the top. Okay. And then I know that I want to go ahead and make that just a little bit, not 1/8 of an inch. And when you look at your board, you have a line that goes in, a valley that goes in, and then at the 1 inch mark, and then you have one at the 1/8 inch mark. And between those two you have a ridge, and it pops up. So I'm going to put mine between the 1 and the 1/8, and I follow it the whole way down. And I'm going to cut it. So then I'm going to take it and I'm going to check it and make sure that I'm going to have a little bit of black on each edge. And I do. So I'm going to make another one of those. I might make 2 of those. One for each side and then one for the bottom and top. So and I'm going to do one more. This is the trickiest part, is getting it situated and making sure that you have it even on this edge too. Okay, so we have those. So I know that I cut these for my bottom, but before I go on, I'm going to see if they fit for my top too, and they do. They look really nice for my top. I have a little bit of black on each edge. So I'm going to cut 3 more of those on. One just a little bit between the 1 inch mark and the 1/8 inch mark. Yep, that looks good. And let's do 2 more of those. And then we will have both the inside and the outside of our box decorated with basic paper. And the only other thing then left to do is decide how you want to decorate the top like this. And if you have a flower or something that you can cut out, that would be perfect, because that's basically what I used on that one. It was a rose from the Cottage Life series, and I did a fussy cut on it. Fussy cut is when you just take your scissors and you cut around as much of the edge as you can. Let me show you that. So I just took my scissors and cut around the rows. And then I used postage stamps, and I used a saying. I put the saying down. But this is something you need to start thinking about, how you want to go ahead and decorate that part. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and smudge at least my long sides and maybe one short side, because as we cut it we'll have to smudge the short side again, and this is something you'll have to remember which one you haven't smudged, which this looks pretty easy to tell. The smudging, you can make it as thick, and we've talked about this before, you can make it as thick by laying your smudge tool over, or as thin by keeping it pretty much straight up and down from your paper. So depending on how much smudge you want there to be, that's the way you do that. So we have a little bit more measuring that we're going to have to do to get these in place on the outside, and it's basically a lot easier to do the outside than the inside, because the inside you can't actually, most of the time you can't get a ruler in there to get an exact match. So like we did last time, I said we would review this. When you're measuring for the inside, you can measure the outside and then cut that measurement and then lay it inside your box. For example, we measured the outside and then we laid it in here and we measured this way also. But then once you lay it in there, you'll see whether it's just a little bit too much or a little bit too small. So those are things that you do when you're doing, I have 3 more of these to smudge. When you're doing an inside of a box, the inside of the box is just a little bit harder. So I'm going to go ahead and finish smudging this one. I'm not going to smudge the other 2 because I'll let you do that on your own. I'll put these to the side. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with my top. You can start with your top or your bottom. And the other thing that you want to make sure is this is your top. If you have words or something with a direction, you want to make sure that your words are going to the top. So I'm actually going to use my tick measurement. And what I do is I lay it as close to the edge as I can. And then I take my pencil and I mark as close to the edge as I want this one to be. And then I will go ahead and cut that. And since this is a thin piece of paper that I'm cutting, I want to push my knife up that way. Oh, where did I put my tick marker? Sometimes it's very hard to see my tick marks, so I'm going to lay it back here. Oh, there it is. Okay. And I want to get it. I'm going to check to make sure I got it right. Yep, I did. And I'm going to smudge. I'm going to finish smudging that. Just the one edge that we didn't get smudged the last time. Okay, so I'm going to take my glue. And you're welcome to cut all of your pieces before you glue. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go ahead and get this one glued down, and then I will measure the rest of them. And you can see I just put a little bit of glue, especially on the outside, and then a little bit on the inside. Now my words, I want them to be running towards the top. And then I'm going to lay it over on its side and take my bone folder, and first I'm going to rub it on the inside, but then I'm going to turn it over, support it, because you don't want that to crack, break, fall in. You see, because as I push, it actually pushes that down. So I'm going to go ahead and support it while I do that. And then I'll do the same thing with the next piece. I'm going to go ahead and lay it in there as close to the edge as I want it to be, and then I will mark it. And this time I'm going to put my thumb on there so I remember where my tick mark is. Oh, that was not fun. I dropped it. And we will put this where our tick mark is. There it is. And I'll go ahead and cut that. And I'll give it a quick smudge. And then we'll go ahead and glue this. Now, the bottom will be exactly the same way. The smaller edges will be exactly the same way. And if you like measuring with a ruler instead of the tick mark, I'm going to do these ends like that. So I want to make sure my words are going up towards my top. Oh, how did I get that so long? I must have missed, oh, I did miss my tick mark. I see it. Sometimes these darker papers are harder to see tick marks. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and burnish on the inside first, and then I'm going to support the inside as I go across and burnish this. Okay, so if you don't like making tick marks, you are welcome to use your ruler. And what I would do is I would put my ruler where I would want my paper to end, and then I would go over here and see where I want it to end here. Now mine is at 1 1/4, but I don't quite want it at 1 1/4. That might be just a little too long. So I'm going to cut it between the 1, or yeah, it's actually 5, sorry. 5 1/8 and 5 1/4. So we want this to be between 5 1/8 and 5 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and take one of these. And I know I want it between 5 1/8 and 5 1/4. So I find my 5 1/8 and 5 1/4, and I measure it on top between those two. And then I'm going to go ahead and smudge that. I'll measure it to make sure. Yep, that looks really nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and glue this one down. I do want my words going to the top. And so I will go ahead and use my burnishing tool on the inside first, and then I will support the outside and burnish. Okay, so we have 3 sides. And I'm going to do this one more time to show you. And then I will let you do your bottom. I will show you just one on your bottom and let you finish that. So I have lost my, there's my ruler. Okay, again, what I do is I put my ruler as close to the edge as I think I want my paper to go. And then I look over here. Now this one is about, I think 5 1/4 will do it, because this side looks like it's just a fraction of a hair bigger than that other side was. So I'm going to do 5 1/4. And then I'll check before I glue it down just to make sure I don't have to use my scissors to trim off just a very little bit. Okay, so let's put this down again. Oops, not my top. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure that this will fit before, oh, and it does. See, it's just a little bit bigger on this end than it was on this end, and this happens when we create things at home. Let's go ahead and glue that. Okay, and I want my words going to the top again, so I check and make sure I do that. And I lay this across. I'll use my fingers, turn it to the inside, burnish it just a bit, and then turn it to the outside while I'm supporting the empty space inside of there. Okay, so we have this entire top is finished. So let's go ahead and talk about doing the bottom. The bottom is not too much different than doing the top, except that we want our paper to go on the bottom edge and leave the foxing black. You don't want to put anything on your foxing because it might make it just a little bit too tight for your top to work. So I'm going to go ahead and use my tick measurement. And I've made that quite deep. I'm going to use my finger to show me where I've done that. And again, you can use a ruler. You're welcome to use your 12-inch ruler. Oh, I didn't put my, let me put my pin back in my glue. I don't want it to dry out. I love this art glitter glue. It does dry out a little fast, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do it this way so I can measure and see how long I made this one. This one's about 9 3/8. And I want to smudge that edge that I just cut. So 2 things you want to be aware of when you're doing the bottom. You want your words to be facing up, unless you're not using a word one, and that's okay too. And then you just want to make sure that you get this only on the bottom part of your box. So let's go ahead and glue this so that I can show you basically what I'm trying to do. Put my glue on here. Okay, so I have that glued. It's going up. And I'm basically going to align it closer to the bottom than I am to the top, so that I make sure, there we go, and I will burnish it on the inside first, and then I will again, I'm going to support it with my fingers on the inside as I burnish down here. So when you put this together like this, you have a little bit of black on each end, the bottom, the top, the bottom, the top. So I'm going to go ahead and let you girls and guys finish measuring and covering all 4 sides of this, and then our next lesson I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would decorate this with some of the pretties that I have. Okay, I know this is short, but I like to keep them short and give you a chance to practice some of what we've done so that this becomes something you own, something you have in your education. And these skills, they transfer to anything else that you're trying to make. So if you make them yours, then you can transfer them to anything else you want to make. Okay, I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.